welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex, your social media marketing funnels for lawyers, as well as the manager of the Criminal Mastermind and CEO of Ruane Attorneys. Some issues this week with just being the CEO we're going to talk about. But with me, as always, is my friend down there, DC, Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, powerhouse law firm, Price Benowitz, the man, the myth, the legend, Seth Price, as well as one of the founders of Blue Shark Digital, SEO for lawyers and law firms. So Seth, I want to check in with you, see how you're doing. How's your week going, Seth? What's new?
In one sense, great. Happy to be here. Great. Just, as I listen to Jay Ruane, King of All Systems, I am humbled by the fact that I feel like I am not I have this great, large, expansive law firm, a lot of stuff well, and yet I feel that I can't run systems as well as I should be able to. When I say that is, a credit card was maxed out by a department this week. We have probably a half dozen credit cards that are eligible for the firm, right? Different points cards, this and that, luckily being a points card. And yet that one credit card maxing out brought a number of things to a standstill, meaning phones went off for 10 minutes today. A client lunch couldn't be ordered yesterday. And all it takes is some sort of processes to say, okay, you have these credit cards. What's the order of operation? Doesn't exist for my administrative team at the front desk, didn't exist on our, and truth be told, phones have gone down before for such a reason. We live in 2022. I got to be able to create systems for the contingencies of what goes wrong, especially given it's a known issue that has happened before and will happen again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got in my system, and I got to put it in, phones are down, although I'll check to see, it might be there. But we have in our systems manual, in our wiki, in case of emergency entry, where we walk through 40 different things that could blow up. A lawyer gets hit by a car on the way to court.
I'm with it. Those are real freaking issues. And the truth is 90% of those are going through Jay for the foreseeable future. I get that. That said, a credit card maxing out, which happens on a periodic basis, is not like you wanted to, but when somebody puts an expert witness on a credit card that wasn't planned and maxes out something. So all of a sudden, just the thoughts and the two things that come to mind, which why it comes back, everything's back to Jay Ruane, is the following. One is so on the administrative side, when they need to know what to do when Uber Eats is not working for a client lunch, right? The fact is, I said, okay, great. We learned that yesterday. I pushed back and didn't just say, hey, here's another credit card. I'd say, figure out how to do it, channeling my inner Jay Ruane. But I said, today, was it updated? Oh, I haven't had time for that. Did you make a note anywhere that shows what you want to update when you want to update it? Oh, no. This is a guy going to law school. And I'm pushing people to say, hey, what's going to make you money in life is when you have the ability to solve those problems. And I wish I could somehow wave a magic wand and say, so that's one half. I can let you answer that. And the second half is, we're in 2022. Now, we're probably stuck in a small business account, even though we probably have close to 100 cell phones. And there's got to be some way to have a credit card backup, a bank account backup, God forbid, a credit line from Verizon for 1 month service after using them for, a decade or two. Talk to me a little bit about going from systems as a concept to internalizing them so that they become living, breathing organisms that continue to build and grow. Best practices for that, because right now, the little hair I have, I'm ready to rip out.
So we ran into your credit card issue a while back. I mean, like 4 or 5 years ago. And nothing as major as the phones going down happened, but it was something that all of a sudden, wait, why is this not going through? And we quickly figured out. So one of the things that we've decided to do is we've actually automated payments towards that credit card every week. So we had every Friday without fail, $5,000 gets paid towards that.
And the irony is,
there's always $5,000 worth. Sometimes we get way ahead. Sometimes we don't.
Agreed. And we lit like same, right? 5 years ago, we did that. And somehow in that 1 week interval, it went to the moon.
Yeah.
$60,000 got spent or whatever it was.
Let me tell you about, before I get to the answers, let me tell you about my week. So I'm looking at the QuickBooks and I'm seeing, tens of thousands of uncollected dollars that are not coming in, and are unpaid over the last 30 days is growing daily. And it shouldn't be, because most things that we have are done by credit card. Most things that, the people that are not paid in full for our practice are on standard monthly payments. And, we don't like to go out, more than 6 months, because we want to make sure that we're getting paid on high turnover type clients. So about a month ago, end of March, intake sales lawyer comes to me and says, things are getting screwed up with payment plans. We're taking somebody off payments. They're not going to do it anymore. I'm going to do all my payments inside my team. We got this. So I say, okay, that's cool. So that happened at the end of March. End of January, we had taken somebody off of intake to elevate them to a legal admin position.
The references before.
And this was a person who was working intake and had not only worked with intake, but worked intake second part of the week and included the weekend. Now, I knew this was going on the weekend because it was something to fill her time. She was actually auditing all the intakes for the week. She was actually going back to Monday, stepping through each one. Are the cases open in our system? Are the court motions filed? Are the payment plans set up? Are the payment plans set up in our CRM? Are they set up on our credit card processor? She was creating this massive spreadsheet that she was working off of, and it was essentially auditing the intake process, which was great. Because every Saturday night, I would get this email from her saying, checked everything, boss. Everything looks good for this past week. We're awesome. Okay. So that was going on from, July through January. We have a senior paralegal who's going out on maternity leave at the end of June. And we said, we need to add somebody to her team, elevate somebody, put somebody underneath them so that we can handle the bandwidth while she's gone. So the idea was, well, this woman is working well. Let's take her, elevate her, because she seems to, want to learn more about law and that type of thing. And we'll put her into this process. So she moves over to legal ops.
I'm going to do what I do at the mastermind. What's the issue?
So she moves over to legal ops, and nobody takes over being her intake auditor position. The intake team doesn't really pick up on the fact that that person is missing. So they miss a few things. That starts to snowball. They miss a few in February, a few more in March. By the time we get to April, they're missing a lot. Nobody has audited and caught those things. And so now we're at a point where, and here's the kicker, in late March, that woman gets terminated because we find that they caught her sleeping on the job. I don't think she was happy in legal ops. She was a remote worker, and
you upset the apple cart.
We upset the apple cart. So it was a systems failure from partner level down to the basic level.
But
systems all mess up at all different levels, and that really sort of caused a $30,000 error in the month of April. Now, we started to see this and say, why are we so far behind?
Checks and balances, but look, and that's always the Achilles heel. I'll talk personally. We lost, we had to make a quick fire earlier this year at a very senior level, maybe end of last year rather. And I'm still finding those little things that were being done that weren't quite perfectly systematized, where the new team just had no idea they needed to be done.
Yeah.
And it's basically, we aspire to J systems perfection, but the truth is we don't live in that perfect world.
So here's the thing, right? I'm sure you have friends, I have friends that are, they fancy themselves home improvement guys, right? And so what they do is they go out and they have a tool for every situation. They've got, they need to cut into a corner. They've got the Dremel with that corner piece. They've got, they've got pipe wrenches from, a half inch to a 6-inch pipe wrench.
Time out. I'm going to pop your bubble because I have a friend who's who's the lower to mid end home improvement, right? He's not like a home builder. He's
right.
Fix it guys. It's a lot harder to fix than to build from scratch. And the truth is, they deal with these same issues. In fact, when I've gone to conferences, I've met people, financial services, home improvement, who listen to this podcast because they get it. And the problem is, it's one thing for the principal to know it, but how do you send somebody out with all those different permutations?
And that's exactly my point. You and I know people who literally will go out and they'll buy every tool, but they'll actually use 3 tools every day and they won't use any of the other ones.
So the tools to them are our domains. We buy those crazy domains and don't use them. They buy those tools and they use the same 3 things when they go out.
Exactly. And so what you need to do is actually have a culture in your office of going to the systems, using them so much regularly that you're checking to make sure, is this still the way that we do it?
Let me question. Is it what's the vernacular you use? Or is it like the system? What do you call, what is somebody going to?
Ruane Co. because it's ruane.co. So in the office, we just say, is it in Ruane?
So do I, like right now I'm on Google Docs. I've never made the move. Your brother has this amazing product that he's created. The question is, does that make it a difference if it's a living, breathing thing online, or am I good with it? It's just a culture of going to.
No, because the thing about having it as a living, breathing website, like my brother has set up that we use, is that it's it's indexed, it's searchable by keywords, by phrases.
You have a password to get into it?
Oh yeah, it's password protected. You have to log in.
And can you make a change? What if I want to make a change to it?
Anybody with the permissions can go in and make the edits, and it tracks who makes the edits, when they made the edit. You can restore to prior points if you have to. It integrates with Slack, so when somebody, if you're on Slack or if you're on another one of those platforms, if somebody makes a change, everyone gets an alert that there's been a change to this system, that type of thing. We're actually in the process of moving over because we're on, like version 1 and he's on version 5 of his stuff. So I actually have somebody in my office now, and this is the wonderful thing that we discovered, is that we have somebody who is our systems auditor, and her job is to make sure that the systems stay up to date. She is a part-time employee who was with us full-time and now has gone part-time and went remote. And so her job is to bring everything over onto the new platform. She's recording all new looms for all the videos. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing, I wanted to get your advice on this. So we terminated this employee at the end of March, but maybe we rushed to terminate her, and she actually would be well served back on intake doing that.
So look, that's a couple things. Like you get promoted out. So first you got to figure out, and I've done this a number of times. You saw this the other way around. It's like you have it both ways. Like my law partner Dave, and you're a little fuzzy by the way. My law partner Dave, always says don't go and move people around within a firm, because we have not had awesome success with that. That generally, when we find somebody who doesn't survive well in one, in theory, you should figure out where they would. And I know that that's our dream, but most of the time we have found, I'm giving you a generalization at the law firm, that when we've changed things around, it's not like they went from like blah to rock star. It is generally, there's a reason that you are moving them out. Now, you want to be able to give a road for improvement. And if you don't, you're going to lose people that way. So you're damned if you, damned if you don't. But when somebody is like, if it's being done because somebody is not awesome, I have found, to use a curb your enthusiasm, you don't want to foist your issue from one place onto another department. That doesn't sound like it's the case here, but we have seen this over and over again, where when we try to say, hey, this isn't working here, let's just shake it up using a Mad Men reference and move them over here. It's not like that's a panacea that generally there's issues that come with them.
Yeah, so let me get your advice then. So we had somebody who was killing it on intake and said she wanted to grow with the company, right? So we moved her over to legal ops, and I think it just overwhelmed her.
Why not just manage her within, have a manager within intake?
So what happens is intake is one department, legal ops is another.
No. But within intake, do you have a hierarchy within intake?
We do. But we thought she was best capable and able to handle the stuff in legal ops.
Well, to be snarky, you thought wrong. I'm just saying that with a smile. I'm just loving it.
We bombed this. I turned this over to my new director of legal operations. He said, "Look, my people don't trust her. They've caught her sleeping a number of times."
She also said actions speak louder than words.
Right.
Assuming she was doing fine.
I want to cut her. And I said,
look, or you say, or look, again, if she was great, or at least B+ at intake, you give a shot. Look, getting good people is hard. She knows you like her. If in fact, or there's something else going on in her life. And like right now, I can't tell you how many people in my professional life where work is not their primary focus. Family, sickness, mental health. And again, they're all legitimate things. It's just very hard to run an operation when you know that some of the people in your greater orbit have significant interpersonal or personal issues going on that make it really tough.
So do you bring somebody back that you fired a month ago and make them an offer?
You fired her, or you just
I didn't, but the firm fired her and said, "You're gone. We've caught you. They say they can't trust you. No warning. It was you're done." And she was devastated.
The book would say you're done, move on, like that. But again, you and I have always gone with our gut, and generally that's been right. It's not like I brought people back and it's look. I've had issues where somebody very senior, as you know, left our firm. It was definitely strained for a period, and then they stumbled back into my professional orbit and life and are now in it, and it's awesome. That wasn't somebody it's the opposite. It was somebody who didn't want to lose. But again, if you speak to an Andrew Finkelstein, it's like you're done. Generally, there's a lot of people without people coming back. But if you were like, look, we jumped the gun, you can give yourself a narrative. There was a non-replicable issue going on in their life that made them fall asleep on the job or do whatever. I talked to Mario, big fan of the show, and he's dealing with a high-profile person who is moving on. And, there's, the question we have is, do we give enough chances? Don't we? Nobody's going to tell you it's okay to bring her back. Have you ever done it?
Have you hired anybody back after you fired them?
We had one person who was in and out of the firm for a period of time. I don't remember they were fired, but they left, sort of walked, they left.
I want the audience to pipe in on this. So comment down below and let me know, would you bring somebody back if you had fired?
Look, it would take an exceptional, arguable, clear path reason. A lot of people say no matter what.
Right.
You and I both are people, and if you feel like something has changed, so as an alcoholic and they're been clean for 3 years, does that make a difference? Or if you burned a bridge?
Can you trust somebody who you've already fired? The reality is that the firing, I don't think was necessarily handled the best way. There wasn't a warning, but I was giving my.
But Homewood's right there. You go, look, we are sitting here railing against issues at our firms, right? So looking internally, if I saying this administrative person isn't updating the system well per my wishes, we make plenty of mistakes, right? We can't throw stones. So what you're saying is, as a CEO, you didn't handle the situation well. Had you done a correction and given a warning and said, look, this just can't happen again, and it kicked them in the ass? Every day, we have somebody on intake. Our intake was really a problem. I'll pivot into that for a second. And good news, we fell at a low point for a minute of 70% of inbound calls being answered, 30% were hitting an answering service.
Oh, that hurts.
Right? When you see that, That's horrific. Bells went off. We did, the head of intake is gone. New woman who had been the once in future chair of the department, kicking ass. Over 90% as of last week, which means overnight when we have no coverage from 10 to 6, but the percentage of primetime hours, again, night and day. Somebody on the team who had an important role was not doing a great job. We sat down, we counseled them. When they not doing a great job, they were sticking up the court. 2 people. One person was given a bunch of warnings, bunch of coaching, bunch of everything, attitude. They didn't make it. Somebody else who wasn't doing great, but followed the coaching, did that, has made it through the rain and is doing a pretty awesome job. So part of it is, if you guys jumped the gun, if it was like one of those space-time continuum movies, and you did something before you allowed that act to finish, the truth is you'd still have somebody in intake. Because the right answer was probably take a deep breath, find out what's going on. Why have you gone from an A employee to a D employee? And rather than firing, figuring, hey, was this old thing there? Now you made that move. Can you undo it? I don't know. But
that's the thing. It's a really,
and again, I would guess most people are like, academically, no, what the hell are you doing? Move on. That said, I get it. And if the person was fine on intake,
but she's fine on intake. She's already been trained. She knows our shit. She could literally be high. That's the correlate. That's why I need people to let me know down below.
No, right. And the answer is, look, we as business owners are not flawless. So I gripe at stuff. People gripe back. Hey, you didn't do this. You didn't speak to this person behind closed doors. You did it publicly. You never should do it. Like, those are things I've had over the years. I'm far from perfect with this. Basically playing the brilliant game of chess that you do, that you could make money with her back in intake. That said, you guys effed up on how you handled this, and had you handled it differently.
Well, I mean, if I were to bring her back, I'd get her on the phone and I'd say, look, we screwed up. There were some errors.
No, but you didn't fully screw up.
Right. I'm going to say there was errors on both sides. Right. But we wanted to
jump the gun. We jumped the gun. You screwed up, but you were kicking ass. Partly, I think that there's a piece missing, which is, why was she fucking up? And I know you would have gotten that if you would. Was there an exit interview? Was there something going? Because unless there's something,
it was quick and clean like a guillotine, man. I mean, I came into work one day and Dan was like, "She's gone," and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I empowered you to do it, so that's your, that was your decision to make, and you made it." And then there was some problems afterwards.
Empowering people, they're going to make mistakes. And the question, will that undermine your team if she came back in a different role? Again, I'm going back. Anybody listening to this who's like in the real business world is going to be like, what are you doing? Stop this and move on, right? That said, I'll humor you because I've been there. I don't know if it's anybody we've ever fired, but there was a guy who was just mediocre and he kept having lives. But that's not the case. Like, you need to know when to break your own rules. There's a rule not to do anything. All of our mentors would say, stay the hell away. That said, I'll tell you a story that the reason that Breton runs Blue Shark right now is that he was a junior marketing guy with somebody else above him. And that person was this is years ago. This is, before it was Blue Shark, when it was Price Benowitz, and that person wasn't doing a great job. How can you promote one person to demote another? It did it. It paid off. The secret that I have learned is, if you don't demote money, that you will generally be fine. That is, meaning if somebody is going to take, if you're saying, hey, look, because what you're dealing with here is somebody who is good as an employee but not as good as a manager, that's essentially the situation you have. And if you're saying, hey, this person is there, what I have found is that if you don't harm the person's financial take home, and in this case, it may even be a raise, they would do a raise back to the original job, whatever it is, then you have an option. And it's tough because, look, you care about your culture. You want to make sure that's in place. You want to make sure everybody's rolling in the same direction. And you're talking about this in a vacuum. Are you undermining the person who fired?
That's exactly it. There's a million variables that go with this. And some of the things that we're doing now, we realized with our intake software, we were able to go back to the developer that we have and say, we want to add these checkpoints where things have to be a yes or no. So we're going to eliminate we're going to, in real time, be doing her checks that she used to do on the weekends. So in that respect. I don't need somebody to do that because now the software is going to do that.
Well, software. In my existence. Every time somebody brings this software, it's only $60 a seat. It's going to cost you $5,000 a month, but you won't need a person and a half. If I save the money from every piece of software, I mean, yes. But I think you bring up a bigger issue, which comes back to something I struggle with, and then we wrap up with this, which is that when somebody leaves, either they quit, they're fired, whatever the situation, and they are in a siloed position or leadership, something that I have seen at Price Balance in particular is that when that person leaves, there's a certain amount of stuff that may not be in the system, or if documented well enough or properly, and that certain things won't happen. I'll give you an example. A person left to get COVID, lots of things shifted, and we were supposed to be sending out mailers, like jail mail. And there was a period of time when somebody left before we got a bill and said, what the hell is this for? Where we were paying for and receiving mailing addresses and mailers were not going out.
Yes.
And it kills you. What?
You're just spending money and not doing anything with it.
Right. But that is the type of thing where part of it was a double switcheroo. Somebody was doing it and that person moved into leadership and you know what I mean? It's a moving piece, but part of it is, and this is where I throw it back to Jay Ruane, Systems Genius. Are there things where you can create things that are not people dependent, but firm dependent, and then assign the people to it? And that's one of the things that I'm struggling with. So my old school non-Jay Ruane excellence has been what we call manuals. I need a new term, wikis, pricey, something. There's got to be a something, but the idea that it moves from, hey, this is what we develop and look at when and if anybody leaves the job, to it's something being done along. And the piece that killed me was that I would like my goal for my firm is to have a methodology where people are keeping track of best practices and things they do that aren't life-threatening, but incrementally add up, so that you don't end up with that oh shit moment where you realize you've been paying for a mailing list for a couple months and not sending anything out.
Yeah, the thing that I have found is that once you get to, we've been at conferences where people are like, oh, when you get to X number of people, you need an HR person. What I have found that once you have silos of legal ops, intake, marketing, that type of thing, it is a good investment, a great investment to have somebody who's familiar with each, or at least two of them, and make their role be an auditor role. Whose job is to make sure.
I wasn't able to, look, there are a couple jobs out there that I think will scale at some point. One would be reviews, the other may be auditor, and again, it sucks because I think to do it for yourself is a lot harder than you're giving it credit for. We're not all like Jay Ruane level where we can independently say, oh, this auditor will be out there. It's almost like, as you build out your mastermind or whatever project you're working on, that just like there's three things: reviews, you can't outsource that really to an agency. It's got to be internal.
Yeah.
Another
thing.
thing
The thing I ever did was bring somebody in-house, and that's her full-time job.
Right. Second, I would argue is video social media. Like you need, as great as you may be at the funnels, you need the content, and that's only to be done by somebody sitting in your four walls.
Right.
We have the systems auditor where, again, when you pay somebody externally, and it's similar to the secret shopper, like Ken Hardison has his ghost calls, the idea that there's a person outside of the firm checking in. I wonder at some point if some of those could be combined into a job, because frankly, you don't need a ghost call every day, 7 hours, hours a day.
It's like one of these partial companies where you can have a partial CMO, a partial CEFO, and all that stuff.
Right. What I'm saying is, hey, as we talk about it, is there a role for auditor / call auditor? Somebody who, like, again, I'm trying to build it out into something more, because the more buckets of money you take it from, the less obnoxious an expense is, right? If you just say an auditor, you're like, you should do it. It's a great idea. I'm probably not going to do it until somebody sells me the widget, Jay Ruane. But if you had the potato peeler to go with the Ginsu knife and said, not only are you going to get your systems audited, but they're going to test each of your intake people and review a call beyond what you have already. Like I have people listening to calls in theory, but if you had a double check on each intake person where they listen to record a call on their end, so you don't have to, you're this, what I'm getting at is creating more of a purpose of that person, not putting too much on their plate, but creating a full-time job. Because you know what? A lot of people wouldn't want a full-time person just for systems. They probably should, but it's like one of those things that you don't know you need to get into.
So going forward, my thought is I have a person who's been doing our systems redo, and I think coming out of this, her job is going to be maintaining our systems and being the auditor, just checking in on people, because that way she can see if the systems are being followed. And sometimes if the systems are not being followed, it's because we found a better way of doing it. Somebody needs to update it. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
No, and as I think about this, you know what hit me today? I'll conclude with this. So we have this kick-ass firm ops person who came in from a cluster that I've talked about ad nauseum, right? Guy falls off the motorcycle to a bad egg to a real problematic person. And as that got handed off, it's a game of telephone in one respect, and things like jail mail, things like that. And when I came in, this person, it was not up to par for me to be able to walk in, but it'll be good next time. Because you always get this, right? It's not right now, but we're going to improve, which is great, better than not. But I would almost argue that what you're doing with the auditing is somebody who doesn't know the job. Whereas imagine if you said to random auditor, today you're the firm's ops director. Here is their work thing. And they go through and they have 20 questions. That's what you want. Yeah. What are the questions when you know nothing? And then some of them be like, don't worry about it, that's fine. But if some of those are like, oh, that's a gaping hole in there, looking at it with fresh eyes, the worst part is, I don't know if you fall into this category as well, often these things are ignored and looked at when somebody gives notice, and you use notice period. So the least motivated person who has the least incentive is dusting off those pieces. My dream is to be Jay Ruane and be able to do that in a proactive real-time process.
So I'm going to be applying for a job at Price Benowitz. My starting salary will be $1 million a year, and I will come in and I will be your $1 million. I'll come in and I will do your systems for you. I'll come down, once a quarter for 15 minutes. I'll set up my direct deposit, and you guys can have a paycheck for me starting next week.
Just a $250,000. We'll do
$250,000 per pay period. Yeah,
I'm going to use Shank Coin if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You can just send. When I set up after we hung out with Shankman, you can send me ether at jruane.
No, or maybe I'm going to create the Price Coin.
There you go.
That's the part that kills me about the cyber stuff. Is like, what keeps Jay Ruane from creating his own currency? And
absolutely nothing. I actually thought about releasing all of my systems as an NFT and just see if anybody would buy it. And then they could trade around. But
I would say yes, but in the circles we travel in, it might be few and far between that are actually getting the ether to buy your.
Exactly. So, okay, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you want to keep up with Seth, you can do so by following him at all the Blue Shark Digital SEO and social platforms on YouTube, on LinkedIn. He's posted some great stuff on LinkedIn lately. So check him out. Connect with him on LinkedIn if you can. Yeah, you were going to say something?
I was going to just say next show, I want to talk, because I was spending some time with Ali Watt in the mastermind recently, and it struck me that the creation of the content, there are two bottlenecks. One is the creation, and one is the creation of that content from the raw video. And that I'd like to talk more, I followed your advice and I got the full-time videographer, and it has created lots of content, but I feel like there's a missing piece between content and great poppable content.
Well, it's almost like two different things. And part of the problem is when you bring a content person in, a videographer, there's probably 6 months to 9 months of just solid, basic law content that you don't have out there yet that you should tackle first, because that's going to be evergreen stuff.
Yes, you say that, and I don't disagree, but nothing's evergreen. And second, the idea is we're in a point where again, this is why I want to talk about it, with reels and everything else, that's blooming and getting eyeballs.
Well, I got something for you. I want you to take it to 2 lawyers in your office, give it to David, give it to somebody else. I want them to debate on Facebook or on Instagram. Does a straw have 1 hole or 2? Put that out there, and let's see if we can get people in your office taking sides and see if that gets you some good social stuff. Because that's the kind of stuff that people are looking for. They don't really care about updates to Washington, D.C. criminal code.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. Like I can't wait to hear the Jay Ruane sign off then.
All right. So if you need to catch up with me, you can do so by checking me out on any of the social platforms. But if you want to follow up with me in some systems like we talked about today, please join my Systemizing Your Law Firm for Growth Facebook group. Otherwise, that's going to do it for us this week. Please join us next week, every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, here on Maximum Growth Live. Bye for now.